Hey guys, what's up? Unrested back again, and today we are covering the topic of the dark truth behind drunk salarymen in Japan. If it's your first time on the channel, I am Unrested, someone who's lived abroad in Japan for 15 plus years and currently travels between both America and Japan yearly for both business and because my family lives in both countries. I am going to cover this today, just kind of get into some of the darker topics. Sorry, that go on with some of the maybe nightlife and outside of the general sort of cultural loop you see constantly on display for tourism in Japan. Let's get into this side of it and have it covered by this YouTuber right here, Aini. She has some great stuff. I highly recommend checking her out. And this is a great topic to cover as well. Let's let her talk, and I'll make commentary where needed.
This is Japan, but this is also Japan. What is happening here?
Okay, just to stop it right there, those scenes right there, these are not really rare occasions. This is almost every night if you live in the deepest city parts of Japan. For example, Osaka, where I live, and Tokyo, this can be seen just about anywhere. And these guys are leaning over in these pictures, but I mean, you can find people. I say people. You'll find salarymen, and this is the most common amongst salarymen. I mean, even just like laid out on the street, not in the middle of like the actual traffic in the street, but like very big sidewalks like they have and stuff like that. They'll just be laid straight out on there. And I guess one good aspect of it is you realize how safe Japan is, because I have definitely seen a salaryman with a however many thousands of dollars Rolex on their wrist, and no one's going to even bother them. At most, what someone might do is leave a bottle of water for them to drink so they can rehydrate.
Witnessing the aftermath of Japan's nomikai culture. The word nomikai is formed from the word nomi, to drink, and kai, session. Put together, it means drinking party, and it's core to Japanese culture. But
Also, be careful, don't get it mixed up with nomi hodai or tabe hodai. Nomikai is like a drinking party, drinking session, drinking get together. But if someone says, "Do you want to go to nomi hodai?" that means all you can drink. And let me tell you, people are going to get absolutely destroyed at those parties, and they're going to expect you to as well.
nomikai culture has a dark side, and these problematic parts have recently come under fire. To understand why, we need to first know what even goes on at a nomikai. Like seriously, what is happening to Japanese salarymen to come out looking like this?
Yeah, this is really common. I mean, I've seen people pass out on the trains. I've seen people passed out straight up on the street. This is not a shocker. This is not uncommon.
Well, we're about to find out. Welcome to the other side of the workday. Like many things in Japan, traditional nomikai come with a set of rules. First, in traditional workplaces, if you receive an invite, you really should say yes. And
If you're wondering why you really should say yes, maybe she's going to cover this already, but pretty much your Hancho, group leader, or I don't know, just Cho boss is going to go ahead and say, "Hey guys, guess what? Tonight the whole party's going out to drink." And your boss is always going to be there the latest. He's going to be staying there until finally he's going to leave, and then usually everybody else will go home. And that's how salaryman life works. And the saddest thing about that is it leads to an insane amount of overworked employees, because half the time, a lot of these CEOs, bosses, company owners, whatever you want to call them, that are the main boss that everyone waits for them to leave before they'll go home. Sometimes their house is also the business, or the business and the house are connected. Like literally, their house is upstairs and the business is the lowest floor in the building, because residential and business are zoned in the same area all throughout Japan. That's not uncommon. And a lot of people, of course, will just sometimes buy a big facility, make a living area in it, and then run the company from there. Even things like warehouses and stuff like that, they can have a separate part that is a house for them. So they're gonna stay as late as they want. All they got to do is open up the door to the upstairs bedroom that they live at, and their day's done. You got to take a 2-hour train ride home from Tokyo out to Chiba or something like that. It's not really fair.
I'll explain why later. The colleague who just invited you is called a kanji. They're the organizer who will call up the izakaya, the pub, to make the booking and rally all the participants, just like how they did with you. Next, everyone arrives at the izakaya, but you can't just sit wherever you want. Traditionally, there.
If you're wondering, like an izakaya, what would you? It's the equivalent to like an Applebee's or TGIFs. Do those still exist? I don't think I've seen one of those in America in a long time. Not saying the food is the same, but the regularity as an after work meetup place is the same. Izakaya, they all have different names and different themes. They're pretty much a place where multiple tapas is ordered, which is just like small plates of food, and they're reasonable priced. Like they're actually, quite frankly, these days with how expensive America is with food, they're really really reasonably priced. Like you could definitely dig into a very hefty meal for like $30 to $35. And even when you go to meet with these groups, often the boss will pay for everything and even the drinks. But even if they don't, like if they're like, hey, we're gonna split it, everybody, like it's still coming to like $30 maybe. You're not gonna break the bank going to these places. Food is so-so. It's mostly, a staff of high school kids and a kitchen staff that's probably been cooking the same meals for who knows decades. But it's decent. It's okay.
There are assigned seats based on hierarchy. The best seat is called the kamisa.
I actually did not know that. I never had a situation. I've been to these many times. I've had to go to these with businesses. I think ours were a little more casual because they involved gaijin, that's foreigners like us, who didn't probably understand the echelon of seating order. So I've never been to one where there was a seating order. So I'm about to be educated right here.
Positioned furthest from the door and reserved for the most senior person in the room. The worst seat, called the shimoza, is usually closest to the door, and junior staff members or newcomers will be seated there. This is because historically the position closest to the entrance was most vulnerable to enemy attacks. Once everyone is seated...
Okay, I did not... Yeah. Okay, so what I was thinking is what happens is when the waiter or waitress brings everything... usually they're carrying so much stuff that the person closest to the door has to divvy it up amongst everybody as far as drinks, plates, etc. But she's going straight back to Edo era Japan and saying, "Now this is the person who would get hit first with the katana." So that's really interesting. I did not know that historical background. Very cool.
We can get the drink started. Common courtesy is to order something that can be served fast, like beer, because everyone only starts to drink once all the drinks have been served. After a short toast, usually...
I will say this is one thing I do know about Edo era Japan. You have to wait for everybody to get their drink. Starting to drink before anybody else, mega rude. Don't do it. And also, you need to do kanpai before everybody gets their drinks as well. So everybody gets their drinks. Usually the boss will say kanpai, and everybody bangs their drinks, and they'll give them a good thrust to the point that like you'll spill a little bit. And the reason this is done, this was so interesting to me, is that if someone at the table had poisoned the drinks, then banging them together like this would spill people's drinks out and kind of into other people's drinks, and like they would slosh around. And that means if someone did poison one drink, it would slosh into other drinks and everybody would end up getting poisoned. That way it's like, you're going to try and kill me? Well, I'm taking everybody with me. You're going to die too, and so is everybody else here drinking with me. So that's like super polite to make sure you bang that in kanpai as soon as you get started on the drinks. That's interesting though.
From the most senior person, the kanpai or cheers comes out, and so begins the drinks. Throughout the night, the kohais or juniors must keep an eye on how full everyone's glasses are. Once they are empty or near empty, the kohais should read the room and proactively top up drinks for...
Yeah, and dude, this is what will get you so damn wasted, okay? She said, like, they'll keep checking the kohais. If you're wondering kohai, you've definitely heard something similar to it called senpai. Well, if you've ever wondered what the opposite of a senpai is, it's a kohai. Senpai, master, kohai, apprentice. Of course, this isn't always the situation. Like an upperclassman can be your senpai, and you being the lowerclassman in a school, high school, middle school, etc., makes you the kohai. But this continues on even into the workplace. And yeah, dude, they'll keep topping you up. Oh my god, like, okay, you can probably monitor your own drink as you're drinking. You get started on the night. But try monitoring your drink while you're getting more and more inebriated. And as you think, wait, didn't I just finish that whole glass? It's already filled back up again when you turn around. So it is almost impossible to keep track of how much you're putting down. Now, mind you, nobody actually tries to drive home after these kind of parties. Like, that would be insane to do. You can only imagine. And in fact, Japan's DUI laws are far stricter than America. It's pretty much like, I think your body does have like a natural amount of alcohol in it. Like, it's a super, super low, like 0.0001 something is like a natural amount. And if you are above that natural amount, even by like a 0.01%, you're getting a DUI, and it is a hefty cost. We can look at that later. I'll look that up and check what the penalties are, because they are way more strict. Like, you lose your license for a long time, and I think you end up paying somewhere upwards of like $50,000 in fines. Like, it's an insane amount. Like, okay, yeah, I just don't want to even mess with that. But public transportation in Japan, way better than America.
For their seniors or senpai. So, as the night progresses, you start to feel the alcohol, but your glass keeps getting filled up, and it's really hard to say no. As Finnish researcher Juha Partinen writes, refusing an offer to drink is bad manners, requiring profuse apologies if one really feels it necessary to do so. As such, sometimes it's easier to employ more subtle strategies. Rather than bluntly voicing out a no, anthropologist Harumi Beppu in his 1974 paper describes one such way. If a guest has had enough sake and wants to accept only out of politeness just a little more but not a full cup, then before the cup is full, he must move the cup higher and higher to prevent pouring of more sake, whilst mumbling something to the effect that it is enough. A good Japanese host is not one who necessarily respects the other's wishes. He is more concerned with forcing his hospitality upon the guest. He is thus prepared for the contingency of the guest attempting to refuse the offer by raising the cup. The moment
I've got like kind of a I got an easier loophole you can use if you want to try and refuse, because this is true. If everybody's drinking and you're not drinking, there is kind of a bit of social pressure. Like, dude, why? Like, and you better give like a decent reason. You can say I'm straight edge, I'm teetotaler, I don't drink, but people are gonna kind of be like, well, then why'd you come to the party? Which is not cool. Like, I don't think pressuring people to drink is cool. I don't think it's cool that if you want to join a party where people are drinking and you yourself don't want to drink, I don't think it's cool to be like, well, you're here, why aren't you drinking, dork? Like, that's not cool. People should just be able to relax and be themselves. But the one loophole I've always seen that works, and everyone's kind of like, oh, yeah, okay, yeah. Tell them you have some kind of medication. Be like, sorry, right now my doctor's got me on a medication where I'm not supposed to drink too much. And everybody will be like, oh, yeah, like, I mean, I don't want you to, like, die. Like, or they'll kind of back off then. That's the one thing I have always seen works 100% of the time. No one's going to be like, well, screw you, dude. Get destroyed on ODing while drinking,
The moment he senses this defense strategy of the guest, he counteracts by holding the bottle higher and higher, raising the bottle at precisely the same speed as the guest raises the cup, so that he
I've never seen this done. I'm sure this probably is like a more older tradition, and this is more talking with like straight sake. I've seen some people drink straight sake at some of these, but for the most part, what you are drinking is whatever's on tap. Man, if you're drinking sake, dude, slow down, dude. Don't start raising that cup like she's telling you to do, man. Because sake will knock you on your ass faster than beer will, for sure.
and keep on pouring sake. To do this, and to do it without spilling a drop, especially after both parties are intoxicated, is no easy feat. Who knew drinking could have so many strategies involved? This just goes to show how hard it is to turn down a drink even when you've had enough. Excessive drinking at nomikai has been linked to serious health issues, including liver disease, cardiovascular problems, and alcohol dependence. Beyond physical health, these after-work gatherings can strain family and social relationships, as employees often spend long hours with colleagues instead of being at home.
Yeah, this is the craziest part, is just how much time a lot of these guys, and it's mostly guys, but there is some women, there are women who get stuck working at these jobs super, super long hours. There was a time when I first married my wife, and I want to say like the first 8 months we were together, she was working like insane 9 to 9 hours. And at one point I was kind of like, what are you doing? Like, do you have to? And she's like, well, I could get another job easily. Hers is a career where she can move around very quickly. And I was like, hey, like, think about doing that. Like, this is too much. And eventually she did. And it's funny that when she finally did, she was like, hey, you were right. Like, that company worked me way too much. And it was like, yeah, yeah. But she's just so used to it. It's just what you've grown up with, what you've always known, what you've seen your parents do. So to get out of that loop in society, sometimes it's like a shocker to the Japanese. But when people would always ask me, they'd be like, why in Pokemon the dad's never in any of the games? Like, it's just him writing letters home and he's constantly away. And I'm like, that's society in Japan. The dad is not there. And it's not the dad being a bad, negligent dad. It's oftentimes these companies pretty much holding them hostage at the job 24/7. I mean, it's bad enough that there is literally places in the konbinis, and if you don't know what a konbini is, it's like a quickie mart, all right? There's tons of them in Japan. And there's a section for salarymen to go to that have like resupplying yourself. So like a brand new white collared shirt, brand new undershirt, just quick Axe type spray you can spray on to like, get the stink of like gyoza and alcohol off your body, and then head right back into work, which means they never went home. Like maybe they just passed out in the train station, waited till it opened up again, ran to a konbini, bought those replacement parts, put them on, and then headed right back into work where they've never even been home. Yeah, there's some insane work schedules like that where the guy pretty much never seems to leave work.
These are just some of the well-documented consequences of this tradition, and keep in mind, a lot of the employees there drinking don't have a choice. So why exactly do Japanese people have to go? To answer this question, we have to go back in time and understand first alcohol's significance in Japan. Alcohol has long been woven into the fabric of Japanese culture. In the history of the Kingdom of Wei, the earliest known Chinese text to reference Japan, Japanese people were described as being fond of liquor. Sake, Japan's most iconic liquor, is believed to have been first brewed over 2,000 years ago, around the same time rice cultivation began in the region. Sake quickly became the drink of choice and took on deep spiritual significance. In religious ceremonies, it was first offered to gods before being shared among people, symbolizing a sacred bond between the divine and the mortal. During Japan's feudal era, alcohol consumption was marked by class divisions. Aristocrats enjoyed refined sake in elegant settings, while commoners restrained by poverty brewed their own and reserved it for festivals or special village occasions. These consumption habits would all change though with the industrialization of Japan during the Meiji period. The rise of large-scale breweries made alcohol widely accessible in Japan, and so alcohol became not just a ritual brought out for celebrations, but a routine. With greater urbanization, rural gatherings became less of a thing, but its spirit lives on in modern-day Japan through company drinks. Whether it's celebrating the end of a year, the end of a quarter, or just getting through another week, drinking has remained a key way for Japanese people to connect.
There's so many times they have parties. There's end of the year parties, so when the year's ending, I mean that's kind of common even in America, right? In New Year's Eve party, getting wasted for that. The company does that. There's a sayonara party, which is people who are leaving the company. We have to have a party for them because they've been with us so long. And there's also a jiko shokai party, introduction party. The new people joining the company this year. There's often like the boss's birthday, they go out to drink. Many other reasons. Like sometimes even like the boss is getting married, we got to go out and drink. Oh, this one vice president who's been here for a long time, he's finally getting married, let's go ahead and drink for him too. She's totally right with this. There's often many different reasons these parties happen. Most of the companies I worked at, it was usually only end of the year, Jiko Shokai, which is introduction party, and Sayonara party. We're the only ones where we would really have to go and drink and stuff. I mean, I say have to. Most of the companies I worked with were kind of like, you want to go, go. If you don't, whatever. We're not going to hate you forever.
Speaking of connection, 지금 한국에 있어요. So if I wanted to connect to data here, 어떻게 해야 할까요? Well, UBG has us covered. UBG is an app for multiple to feel secure when you're... Now that we have a sense of alcohol's significance to Japan, we can start to unpack why nomikai culture is so prevalent. And that comes down to both internal and external factors. First, let's take a look at internal factors, what you want and what people want from you. I mentioned before that it's hard to reject a nomikai invite, and that's because in Japan, drinking is not just about the alcohol, it's about building relationships. That's because Japan's society is quite reserved. There are a lot of unspoken rules about what you should and shouldn't say. I actually have another video deep diving into what these rules are, so you can check that out later. But for now, just know, in Japan, people don't always say what they think, because speaking to...
People don't always... It's very common, especially at work. People will not give you direct no. Like, that's one of the biggest things. People will not directly be like, no, that's a stupid idea. Let's not do that. Like, even if you have an idea that you think is great and the other person knows would not go over big at wherever you're working at, almost always they wouldn't be like, no, don't, please, don't do that. That's not going to make the boss happy. Like, maybe chill on that idea. They're going to be like, I see. Maybe. Maybe. If they tell you maybe, they almost always mean no.
Bluntly, will come across as being rude, which is socially inappropriate. This means people hold back on their opinions, their thoughts, and how they feel. But drinking creates a kind of social loophole. When Japanese people drink, they're allowed to be more honest, more vulnerable, and say what they really think.
This actually gets into some, like, I don't know about this video, what she's about to say, but what I'm saying is this kind of situation that she's talking about. Guys, I have heard stories of dudes straight up cussing out their boss, like having a total crash out, freak out moment. And then the next day the boss is like, you were drunk, whatever. Like, I have actually heard Japanese get away with some like insane stuff that they did. I'll have to tell the story another time, but I actually know a company that was pretty much half-staffed Gaijin and half-staffed Japanese. That means like half foreigner and half Japanese. And the boss, the owner of the company, was foreigner. And he crashed out and freaked out bad enough that he pretty much lost the whole company. Because while this is okay with Japanese for the most part, like you say something crazy, you say something stupid, the next day people are like, yeah, but you were wasted. It doesn't go over as big with us foreigners. But I'm really interested to see what she's going to say people can get away with.
So alcohol creates a safe space where we listen and we don't judge. Or, as partner puts it, the main purpose of drinking is the attainment of uninhibited sociability. As a result, the Japanese even have a word for this process of using drinks to initiate and solidify relationships, and that is nominikation, a portmanteau of the Japanese word nomi.
I've never heard this. Nominikation. I love it. Holy cow, I've never heard that. I get tutored every single week in Japanese, and I've never heard this word. That's really interesting.
To drink, and the English word communication. Naoya, a 32-year-old man from Osaka, says this is one of the biggest reasons why drinking is important to the Japanese. Drinking is one of the most important communication platforms. Alcohol allows Japanese people to express their emotions as well as opinions more openly in this rather socially regimented country. So, if you wanted to get to know someone better, traditionally, it would be done over a drink at a nomikai. Now, the flip side, what others want from you. These factors are just as important in solidifying the existence of nomikais, and it's the Japanese work culture that reinforces peer pressure and a group-first mentality. You see, traditional Japanese companies operate with a very communitarian approach, one that emphasizes long-term employee loyalty.
Yeah, okay, so this is, I guess, the upside to Japanese employment. And this is not going to work for you as the foreigner. Don't expect to get lifetime employment. You'll be lucky if you get a 1 year contract, because pretty much most Japanese are going to ask you, "Itsukaeru? When will you go home?" They're expecting you're going to go home. There's very few gaijin who last as long term as some of us have in Japan. Um, it's still to this day, like, I think 0.1% is like the population of foreigners as far that aren't other Asians. Many other Asians stay there much longer, but for like Western foreigners, it's not very long. The average. Okay, so yes, one of the benefits, lifetime employment. Most of the companies you can get a job with in Japan, you can start right out of college. Like, recruiters come around ASAP when college is nearing its end. You'll go to these giant conventions, and these conventions are literally like just job conventions. You can go around from table to table, kind of talk to the people a bit, and they'll be like, "Oh, you sound like you would be perfect. Why don't you come on in for an interview?" And once you get hired on that, you'll probably get hired really low, like a super low salary. But what you've locked yourself into is full benefits, which does cover pretty much free healthcare in Japan. I mean, close to free as you can get. It's super cheap. You're locked into a salary that will incrementally increase every single year. These days, those increases are mega low. People in Japan are ferociously underpaid for the amount of work they do. Um, and you'll also have most times lifetime employment. And I'm talking like it's actually very difficult sometimes to get fired from a job in Japan. If you are a Japanese employee working for a Japanese kaisha, corporation, um, and you are a salaryman, sometimes it seems like almost impossible for some people to get fired from these jobs. Number one, it's because often the company would have to pay unemployment right away anyway for quite a long time. And number two, what they try to do to fix like a worker who doesn't really fit their situation is they keep moving them around from different department to different department. And I've seen that done to a point where it almost became like dangerous. Like, the person was so inept. We had one time. I'm sorry to say, but she, I don't, I don't know what the situation was mentally, but she just could not. She couldn't be given a list of tasks and follow through with it. Like, just it would just. And look, I'm severely ADHD and dyslexic. I get that, but it was like far beyond me. And it actually reached a point where we moved her. Well, I didn't make this choice, but the boss made it a choice to move her down to a smaller department that only taught like the youngest of kids, because there wasn't a lot of like lesson prep going on. It was mostly just like physical needs type care because the kids were so tiny, right? Well, she ended up giving a kid who was like allergic to like milk and strawberries. Like, they went on a field trip, and she was told like, "Look, we're going on this field trip. It is a farm, and they grow strawberries there. Okay, don't let him eat the strawberries. He's allergic." Okay, they had planned to go on this trip for a long time. There just happened to be a kid that was allergic to strawberries, and she just let him eat as much strawberries as he wanted to, and he came back covered in a rash that led to him having to be rushed to the hospital after school ended by his parents. They were not happy. That was the only time I ever saw somebody fired. And I mean, it literally almost, cost a kid his life. Like, if they hadn't rushed him to the hospital right after that, he could have asphyxiated, right? And that's the most extreme thing I saw someone push to. But I mean, I had another lady, I hired her to be my secretary at my school because she had worked as a secretary in the public school system before retiring. And I thought, oh, well, then definitely you know how all this stuff works. Turns out she had never used a computer in her entire life. And they had been pretty much forced to move her around to all these different departments because she outright refused to learn how to use computers. And it was like 1 week of her taking notes, and then I asked her to start like, filing in pay slips and stuff like that for the students who were going to my school. And when I found out she hadn't entered anything in, and it was all just like written in gobbledygook, freehand, which I'm sure she could read fine, but me being, a secondhand speaker of Japanese, I needed like clear typed out kanji so I could read everything. You can only imagine. Try reading messy cursive. It's very difficult. Now try think about reading messy handwritten kanji. Impossible for me. That's why, silly me. It's my mistake. I assumed she could just type. Even her generation at least had typewriters, right? I thought she could at least type. Now, refused to use a computer, and I'm just like, well, this is part of the job. This was like written in the job description. And she's like, yeah, but I never did it. I'm like, how? What did you do? And she's like, oh, they just kept moving me around to different departments. They did not fire her. She worked until retirement at age 60, having never used a computer in the public school system. And I've ended up meeting people because I also worked in the same public school system in the area. Like I taught lessons there outside of my own school because I was like a travel teacher. And they're like, oh yeah, you had her? Like, dude, that was crazy, right? We ended up having her like file away a bunch of abacuses and like hand out and teach kids about abacuses because she didn't know anything about computers and like just never could even step into that realm. I'm just like, how? And they're just like, yeah, it was really difficult to have her working here. Like, we pretty much had to, make a path for her personally.
Family-like work environments and a strong emphasis on seniority and hierarchy. In this
And also, sorry, I know seniority is the absolute qualifier for a higher position in Japan. There's no meritocracy. It's not how good you do the job, it's how long you've been at the job. And let me tell you, that ends up having a lot of places with absolute shit managers. Just because a guy is old doesn't mean he's actually good at what he's done or is doing. When someone is great at what they're doing and they receive those higher management positions, they're able to teach down to the others below them. When someone's just old and shit at their job, now you just got a guy who thinks he's in charge because he's older than you, not because he's better at doing it than you. And this leads to some really frustrating situations.
system, drinking after work isn't just encouraged, it's seen as a vital extension of company life, as it strengthens the bonds between colleagues and reinforces a feeling of belonging and loyalty. Within this kind of environment, Partner emphasizes that participation is mandatory if one is interested in one's career and wants to get along with the group. Japan even has this saying, if you want to climb the corporate ladder, you have to drink. Add to this the idea of lifetime employment being the norm in Japan in the 80s. So for the older generation, it was even more important to fit in because you'll be seeing the same colleagues for the next 40 years, which means you're going to the izakaya and you're going to drink. But it's not just about wanting to form connections over a drink or getting pressured into it. Several external factors unique to Japan have allowed nomikai culture to thrive. And that is the accessibility of alcohol, loose liquor laws, and Japan's exceptional tolerance towards being drunk. When we briefly talked through the history of alcohol in Japan, we talked about how alcohol is readily accessible nowadays, but you might not have imagined just how accessible it is, because in Japan, you can buy alcohol from just about any convenience store, and they're open 24/7.
Wait, hold on. Let me go back just a bit.
Just how accessible it is, because in Japan, you can buy alcohol.
Why she showed this, guys? This is like O'Doul's. This is non-alcoholic beer. Look at the percentage of beer up top. I thought so. I was like, why is she showing this one? Maybe it's like to like avoid censorship or something like this one. Yeah, Asahi Dry Zero. That's how they advertise it. Why? Why would you? I don't get it. I tell you what, man. I don't drink Asahi for the taste. Same with Sapporo or Kirin. I mean, they're not horrible tasting, but they're not like, delicious like a soda, right? So why are you drinking zero? If you're gonna have to drink this like not great taste, man, at least get drunk, dude. And this right down here says non alcohol. All right. You can. This is kind of becoming a newer thing where people do sometimes order this. One thing I used to do too is you could get an alcoholic oolong cha, which is just like green tea with alcohol in it. I think you can even do mugicha too, which is barley tea with alcohol in it. I would just order that and drink that alongside everyone, and no one knew if mine was the alcoholic version or, you know, the non-alcohol version. So sometimes you can do that too. Of course, you have my other advice of saying I'm on medication, but you can't keep saying that every time. People are gonna be like, "Yo, what kind of medication is that? What are you doing?" So keep this in mind. This is another new thing people are starting to do. I've actually seen my wife do this, where she says, "I'll have not like zero, Asahi Dry Zero." She likes the taste. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Or from just about any convenience store, and they're open 24/7. You can even find alcohol being sold in vending machines on the street. The legal drinking age in Japan is 20, but most machines don't verify age.
I've never seen a machine that verifies age. Not just most machines. I've never ever seen. How would it do that? Your Gaikokujin Menkyo doesn't have that, like your Gaijin card, your foreigner card. And I've seen like, Unten Menkyo too, like your driver's license. It doesn't have like anything you could scan or there's no strip or bar or anything on it that it would be able to verify age. Which it's fine. It's okay. Like in Japan, if someone's like not the right age, they most times won't go and buy the alcohol from there. Um, which is crazy. Like if these existed in America, they would be so busted open, smashed, and everything ripped out in like a second. But I mean, the kind of amazing thing about these vending machines, you get a lot of change in Japan. Let me tell you, biggest travel trip, biggest travel tip you'll ever need is bring a goddamn gigantic wallet because you're gonna get so many damn coins back. Everything's still done in cash, and you end up with juan. Juan is 10 yen. You end up with so many of these damn little 10 yens, right? Well, keep them, all right? Keep a buttload of them, right? And then just dump them into these machines. Get yourself a full six pack with a bunch of dimes, pretty much. It totally works. I've done it quite a long time in Japan. I'm not even a big drinker either.
So let's just say underage drinking is a lot easier here than in many other countries. The casual relationship Japan has with alcohol is observed by Partner, who notes alcohol in Japan has never been regarded as a major social problem, and few measures against its production or use have been taken. Alcohol isn't just easy to get, it's also easy to consume. In Japan, it's legal to drink in public, so you'll see people sipping beers at parks, on the street, or even on public transport. Drinking whenever, wherever is not just accepted, it's entirely normal.
Yeah, let me just tell you, every foreigner who goes there is godsmacked that they're able to just go out on the street with a beer or even a strong 9-0, man. Like those things will knock you on your ass if you drink one of those fast, which is like chew high. It's like a highball. It's like a highball. It's like a mix of like kind of like soda, sweet kind of soda type water, mixed with, I guess it would be the equivalent to fermented rice, and it's strong. You get pretty wasted pretty fast, and you just drink that on the street. And I mean, you will see people literally like stumbling, crawling, barely able to walk to get home, and everyone's just kind of like, yeah, normal.
Japan, being such a safe country, also ironically plays a role in enabling its drinking culture. Someone could be passed out on a bench completely defenseless and wake up with all their possessions intact. People might...
Good. I gotta stop and say this again. I remember walking past a guy one time, and, we had 3 guys with us right now, and it was a guy from Canada, a guy from New York, and me from Florida. And I said, man, if that guy was in Florida, he'd be really lucky to wake up with that Rolex on. And no, I think the guy from Canada said that. And I said, well, in Florida, he'd be lucky to wake up with his clothes on. And the guy from New York was like, he'd be lucky to wake up. And we're like, damn, that's true. That's insane. You can just sleep on the street with that super expensive watch on and you're totally okay. You see them sometimes. They got like Louis Vuitton suitcases and all kinds of like super expensive clothing on, Rolex watch. Sometimes they've got like ultra expensive sunglasses. Because some of these guys, they've been working there so long. I mean, they're getting paid pretty hefty now. And hey, just as safe as can be. I can tell you, man. And I mean, the reason it works is number one, Japan's just a safe country in general. There's not really an area that's anywhere close to, some of the more dangerous areas in America or any other country for that matter. People will tell you sometimes, they'll be like, oh, this area is very dangerous because factory workers live there. It's not dangerous. The only area I would say like kind of be cautious is Roppongi. I have had a few friends kind of duped. They've had the equivalent to roofies put into their drink, and their credit card nabbed, and like a bunch of charges put on their credit card. Oop, sorry, I keep banging this, but I'm trying to stop the cat from smashing into it. All right, let's continue.
Might take a passing glance at them, but Japanese society in general is very tolerant towards being drunk. Pardonen comments on how Japan has been called a drunkard's paradise, as the inebriated are to be humoured and cared for, and most often this is women's task. This tolerant attitude is even seen in how law enforcement responds.
Yeah.
David Bailey in his 1991 book says the following: police officers treat drunken people according to the general view that they are children and are not responsible for what they do and say. The duty
I have definitely seen cops pull up. A guy's kind of like passed out like this. They don't arrest him. Of course not. I mean, he's not doing anything. They come up. They say, "Hey, you gonna be okay? We need to call you a cab." And they're like they can't even talk. They're so wasted. And they'll be like, "All right, hold on." And they'll go to like the conveni and go purchase some water, some Pocari Sweat, which is like the equivalent to Gatorade. And they'll put it all down in front of them. They'll be like, all right, you need to start drinking this, and then we're going to come back and check on you in a little bit and make sure you're okay, all right? If you lay down, make sure to lay down on your side so you throw up, and don't asphyxiate. And they'll just do another loop around their area with the Koban, which is like the police box nearby, and check on them again and again. Yeah, that's pretty much how they treat them. I don't know so much about this thing that women are expected to take care of. I haven't seen that so much. Maybe though she's talking about like kind of like old style Japan. The craziest one I ever saw was I got so many stories about drunk people in Japan. I should just make one video about drunk people in Japan. It was 6 p.m. and my wife and I were about to go out for a drink. This is like way before we had kids and stuff. And there was a guy sprawled out with his friends. They were all drunk too, but not anywhere close to as drunk as he was. It was 6 p.m., all right? This man had already pissed himself. His jeans were covered in piss. He had thrown up. He was like literally sitting right next to a pile of his own throw up. And his nose was broken. Like I could see like a big split across here. And his friends were like nursing him and trying to take care of him while they waited for some, I guess, like medical people to come. It wasn't like gushing blood, but it looked nasty. And this was 6 p.m. and I just remember saying to my wife, like, yo, it's only 6 p.m. and this guy is like this destroyed from alcohol already. Now, this was a bunch of like younger kids. They were probably like freshmen in college. So maybe it was just inexperience, but holy shit, dude, 6 p.m. and you're in that state? Bro, slow down, hit the brakes.
The duty of a police officer is to protect them from their own excesses. This exceptional level of tolerance and acceptance is also reflected through data. A 2013 Pew Research Center survey asked people around the world whether they saw drinking alcohol as morally acceptable, unacceptable, or not a moral issue. Japan topped the list, with 66% of respondents saying it was morally acceptable. The next highest was the Czech Republic at just 46%. The combination of all these external factors has created an environment where drinking in Japan is not only easy but largely consequence-free. And so, nomikai culture has thrived. Note though, the past tense, thrived. Because despite its deep cultural roots, nomikai culture has increasingly come under fire. In recent years, public attitudes have started to shift, as the social pressure to attend these events and to drink at them has become entangled with issues around harassment and consent. Nomikai culture is such a big thing though. Can this practice really change? Well, the younger generation has something to say about it, and they don't need a drink to speak their mind.
All right, I really hope. I don't really know about the younger. I'm kind of an old man now, right? At 45 years old, dude. I don't tend to hang out with the younger crowd that hits bars and clubs. I'm not a bar and club guy to begin with. I'm not really a big drinker at all. Like, I think when's the last time I had a drink? Oh, I think when my wife visited me during winter break, we had a drink together because we haven't seen each other in a super long time, and it's nice to just have a drink and talk about what's going on. So that's, I don't know how many months ago, was December. Um, that cat hair all in my face. So I'm interested to hear how it is changing. I really hope it is evolving and changing. One thing I really like, oh, sorry if you're getting a bunch of bumps on the mic. One thing I really like about this newest generation of Japanese, number one, a lot of them are refusing to work these insane shifts at work. Like, they're not going to do 12 hours. Or like, I watched my dad do it. You know, he died from like liver cancer at 50 years old. Never got to see him, never got to know him. Why am I going to repeat that? Screw that. And I love that about them. Like, that's so awesome. Now, I'm really interested to see how the drinking culture is changing, because one amazing thing I have seen completely change is smoking culture in Japan. Guys, when I got there in 2008, it cost $2 for a pack of cigarettes. All right, $2. And you could buy them in a bunch of different vending machines all over Japan. Pretty much like anywhere. Like, they're super, super cheap. I had friends who had never smoked in their life become like ferociously addicted. And anybody who did smoke before, they were like up to a couple packs a day because Japan was so cheap. And little by little, the worst thing about this was you could smoke anywhere. Like, there would be a lot of restaurants where there wasn't a smoking section. Like, you could just start smoking. And let me tell you, that sucked. You want to like pay for a really nice meal, and then some jerk next to you pulls out a cigarette and just starts blowing cigarettes, in your face while you just paid for like $100 steak. Not fun. And I think Japan kind of caught on to this eventually. They started to tax it higher. They doubled the price. They added even more taxes to it. They got rid of like a lot of the vending machines. They started to little by little like have advertisements that were like, yo, guess what? We found out smoking can actually be bad for you. Crazy, right? I think they even have to add the little, hey, guess what? Smoking causes cancer now. That didn't exist when I got there in 2008. And dude, it's now there's no smoking in restaurants. There's no smoking in bars. And there's even like standing farther away from buildings now to smoke. Because it was like, sorry, just bumped my mic. It was like kind of crazy before. Like, there would be incidents where people smoked so much where like, people are walking around with their child, and how do you hold a cigarette, right? You bring it up here and then you hold it back here. And there would be incidents where like person not noticing what they were doing had hit kids in the face with like a burning cigarette, like where like eyes had been damaged and stuff like that. And they had to like literally put PSAs on there. And you're thinking like, dude, how do you end up doing that? Japan is crowded, guys. Go look at a Shibuya crossing if you want to see how crowded it gets. Guess what? Very easy for like ash to fall into a baby's stroller, for a kid to get hit in the face with some osan who's half wasted, like carrying a cigarette behind him like that. And I think eventually like Japan started to be like, yeah, you know what? This isn't like the greatest. Let's start to, and smoking has become way, way, way less popular. Like, I used to see everybody smoke when I got there in 2008. And now it's like very, very rare that I see a smoker. Most times it's a very, very old person who's just never kicked the habit. So I'm hoping I can see this happen with alcohol as well.
For decades, nomikai culture was seen as just another part of the job, but that attitude is no longer taken for granted. As more women entered the workforce, issues of consent and harassment have brought the more troubling sides of the culture into sharper focus. Kumiko Nemoto, a sociology professor at the Kyoto University of Foreign Studies, comments on this shift. In the past, it happened all the time. It was part of normal corporate culture in Japan, but now it's seen as power harassment. This term, power harassment, relates directly to new laws introduced by the Japanese government in 2019 targeting employers. And these laws have greatly affected how nomikais are conducted and how much pressure there is for employees to attend. Mr. Katsuki, a 47-year-old manager, recalls how back in the day his boss or colleagues would ask him out for drinks up to 4 times a week, and there was really no way of saying no. These days, however, things are different. With stricter laws and companies taking harassment more seriously, he's much more cautious. Subordinates can always anonymously email or write letters to a complaint box. People are much more aware and prudent. This shift in how nomikai are viewed reflects larger changes in Japanese society. The idea of a job for life is no longer the default, and younger workers are increasingly willing to leave companies that don't align with their values. In this day and age, sharing a drink to bond with co-workers after work doesn't hold the same appeal anymore. This generational shift in attitude is clear in an anecdote shared by Takanori Sakaguchi, a procurement consultant. He recalls a friend telling him that more and more job applicants and students at recruitment events are asking whether the company holds drinking parties.
That's great to hear. Yeah, see, that was what I was talking about. You saw that giant convention? This is what happens for college kids all the time. As soon as they get close to graduating, they go to these. That's interesting to hear. They're actually almost interviewing the interviewer to find out how much nomikai goes on. That's all right. Way to go, Japan, man. I like to hear stuff like this.
To him, it was surprising that the presence of nomikai could influence whether young people wanted to work at a company or not. But these questions make it all very clear. Drinking culture matters, and for some young people, it's a deal breaker. Perhaps it's not that surprising that the younger generation is carrying this attitude into the workplace, because nomikais are actually not just big within the business environment, but also at university, especially in uni clubs. And just quickly expanding on this point, it's
Okay, come on. Nomikai at college? Like, what country doesn't have, a big nomikai situation at college? Like, big drinking sessions at college. I mean, if there's any time for you to do it and kind of sow your wild oats, I think college is kind of the time. Still, please be safe. Please don't drink and drive, okay, guys? Really, please be careful.
Seems like uni nomikais have gone through quite the transformation. Wu Yixuan, in his 2023 paper, interviewed 7 respondents who all commented on how they had heard or experienced at first uni nomikais being stricter on attendance and having a more hierarchical structure. But nowadays, attendance at uni nomikais are optional, and senior members often behave in an equal manner with their juniors. In addition, none of the interviewees mentioned feeling any pressure to get drunk at nomikai. The expectation to drink heavily or to keep drinking when they don't want to is fading. Outside of drinking, different alternatives to facilitate bonding have become popular over the last decade, such as hiking, eating out, doing sports, activities that don't require alcohol to facilitate a similar kind of bond. As values evolve, so too do traditions. Nomikai will likely remain a key part of how co-workers and students socialize in Japan, but it's already starting to look a bit different. The more problematic parts of it, like compulsory attendance or being pressured to drink past one's limit, are increasingly being questioned. While business nomikai might take longer to change, university culture shows us that such transformation is possible, and with new laws and growing resistance from younger generations, after-work drinks might one day simply be just that. A pressure-free hangout with colleagues, not an obligation that stretches for hours multiple times a week. Drinking
Multiple times a week. That one guy who said he had to go 4 times a week. Oh my god. I mean, your kidneys would be pissing blood. Like, Jesus Christ.
culture is such a big part of East Asia, and today we just scratched the surface with Japan. I'd love to do a deep dive into China or Korea next, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. Thank you to my
Alright, awesome. Great video. That's Aini, that's her name. A-I-N-I. I'm guessing she is Japanese because that sounds like a Japanese name. I at least know the kanji for that name. So great video, great coverage, great to hear an evolution near the end. That's like really uplifting to hear. I have really seen, like, this is by far the most rebellious I've ever seen a generation of Japanese who refuse to work these insane hours. And there's a fight against what she called power harassment. Often in Japan you'll hear it be called pawahara. Sekuhara, you can probably guess, sexual harassment. Pawahara. These are now finally being fought back against, which is so great to see in the workplace in Japan. Just a small story. Let me end with a small story. I'll never forget my first time being introduced to how bad this could get was when I started my first izakaya job at Nova, where we were all English conversation teachers. And one teacher turned to another one. We were in these little cubicles because we taught on webcams. And he said, "So did she finally quit?" And he's like, "Yeah, I finally got her to quit." And he was like, "What did it? Like, what made her finally quit?" And I had no idea what they were talking about. He's like, "Well, how I finally got my wife to quit that job was pretty much every night she'd come back puking from how much she had to drink with her colleagues. And I finally took a video of her showing her how bad she looked and how messed up it was that it was doing this to her and her system. And that I had to take care of her every night, like holding her hair back as she puked into the toilet from having to go to all these nomikais every night." And he said, "Look, it's either me or the job." And at that time, Nova paid okay. I don't know if you could, yeah, you could probably survive like in a really small apartment with a significant other who wasn't working. And that's what he did. He said, "You need to quit your job if you want to stay with me, because this is terrible. Like, what this company is doing to you is wretched. I don't want to see you be destroyed like this by this nomikai culture." And he said it would literally be like night after night after night after night. They'd be out insane hours, like not getting back till midnight. The trains had already stopped. They'd have to take taxis back. And she'd be delivered in a taxi, puking all the way up to his apartment to, settle in for the night, which he said is just like, it's hell. It's hell to watch your partner go through that. And he finally convinced her to leave, and she did. And he was really happy about it, which I'm happy for him too. Unfortunately, Nova went bankrupt 3 months later after I got there to work with them. So I hope they were okay afterwards. But that's just one story, and that was a female stuck in that situation. The kariya woman, as they call it in Japanese. I'm not joking. That's literally like a word for a woman who's like a full-time salaryman. They don't call her salaryman for obvious reasons. They're often called kariya woman, which is just like career woman. What do you guys think? What is your impression of Japan's nomikai culture, drinking culture? I don't want to completely shoot it down. There's times where I have gone drinking with friends at work, and it has been an absolute blast. Like, super fun. We've had nomikais even with us here in the YouTube scene with our Hanami Matsuri, right? Our flower blossom parties. This is another time where it's really, really, everybody drinks during these. Those happen one time a year. We haven't gotten to do those again since ever since COVID. We never got to do one of those again. So maybe one day we can do that again if I can meet up with a couple other YouTubers out there. But what do you guys think about this culture? Have you experienced this yourself? I know some of you who visited or lived in Japan know what I'm talking about, and I would love to hear your perspective on it. What was it like? How did it happen at your company? Did you avoid it? How did you opt out? What were your excuses if you didn't want to be part of the nomikai? And did you join them and have a blast, or did you join them and ever see some of these horrible experiences go down, like some of the pictures she shows here of these salarymen just absolutely laid out, blasted, and 5 sheets to the wind? Let me know in the comments down below. Thank you again so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please let me know by subscribing or hitting the like button. Hence, I can do more videos covering these kind of rather darker topics, I'd say. And I will see you in the next video. Until next time, I've been Unrested, and I hope you have a great rest of the day.